Not a lot of people are doing this.
What makes, like, how did you guys arrive at the idea that you wanted to try this out?
We're taking it's kind of, I started it and I had the staff think about it. I said, well, the public is mad at education, so I kept saying, well, why? I mean, we are producing results. Our legislature went into sessions this year thinking, we keep giving you this money and the kids aren't getting better. Well, they are. So we're not telling our story very well. But
Mr. Michael?
even more important, if every student graduated from high school with those proficiencies I just described, I think the public would say, wow. And if we need to go to a longer school year, we're 18th ranked in the world as we compete with the rest of the world in our student bodies. And I know we're smarter than that. But they're going 220 days of school in a lot of cases. They work to try to get to these same levels. And I think we can compete. But we're going to have to change how we think. Good question. Anybody else? How do you think about it?
From what you've said, it sounds like a really, really good idea. And it sounds like it could definitely work. And for the people who don't exactly understand, or like they don't advance with their friends, that's kind of, it's really their own doing. Like, I hate to say that, but it's their problem. Like, they need to work more, they need to, you know, block something from going over their head. Like Mr. Ripley says, they need to raise their hand and be like, hey, I don't get this. So that way they can advance with their friends, you know. And if it's such a social problem, then that's motivation for them to do better, so that they can go with their friends.
Okay. Other thoughts? Yes.
A lot of everything you're talking about here sounds pretty much verbatim everything Mr. Ripley teaches about. And it's worked excellent. I mean, I love his class. Is that your form of testing this theory so far, or is there any other kind of forms of testing it, seeing how it would work?
Well, that's the neat part of all this. We've conceptualized this, but we're not going anywhere until we all sit down and figure it out. How do we standardize grading practices? For one, district-wide, not just within a building. We know how to do that. You use a coaching model until everybody gets to where they generally recognize this is A work, that's B work, this is C work. How do you standardize and define employability skills? Exactly which ones are we talking about? And how do we rate those grade-wise, A, B, C, D? So a student knows when they leave here, not only do I know my stuff academically, but I've got everything an employer or a college or the military would look for. Or, for that matter, I can drive a heavy equipment. Or, see, the problem is when you get out there, it's not a problem. The employers don't care that you know exactly what they want you to do. They just know that you want to know that you have the skill sets they can teach you. They're okay with that, because that's what's going to have to happen. Good question. Other thoughts? How do you think and how do you feel about this?
I think one of the biggest problems is when kids are falling behind, they don't understand, they don't say anything. And we need to, for teachers to look at tests and they see a kid's failing, they don't just say, oh, he just isn't trying or something, because he might just not understand, but he isn't. We're going to raise his hand because he isn't courageous, or he's so far behind that if he raised his hand, the whole class would stop. They need to realize before.
It's embarrassing is what you're saying sometimes. I don't understand.
Yeah, and they said it 3 times or 4 times.
That's a good point. Yes?
How do you address things like individual development? So in something like this, I can see how you could have someone who'd be at like maybe a sophomore level, and they would know the curriculum and they could know professionalism, but not necessarily who they are, like just with releasing
I think that's back to the whole point that we don't all mature, learn, or grow at the same rate. But we set up our school system as if we do, and we know better than that. We know it's not. I've been a coach. I used to coach at the University of Michigan. I ran track. I was on the Olympic committee. I remember this in particular. A young man came to the University of Michigan on a scholarship, and he was okay. 4 years later, he made the Olympic team and ran in the Olympics. So he just matured later, that's all. Then some kids who came as stars and really kind of stayed there, they were good. So that's a good question. Provided, I hope this approach provides for more individuality. When are people ready to really make a move? So, how do you think and feel about this? In particularly the issue of if your classmates move on and you spend another semester learning that, maybe they graduate a half a year early, is there a stigma attached to that? Are your parents upset about that?
I think that the benefit that this will create is it outweighs the stigma, in my opinion.
Yeah. He says outweighs the stigma, and I think the way it would have to do, if we're going to be successful with this, it's going to have to involve the whole community. And we just don't do this all at once. We've got to figure it out, communicate it, help everybody understand why it's the right thing to do. We have to convince the state to let us have the money for students who need it for longer. And by the way, stop giving us the money when the kid's ready to go on to college. So there's a whole bunch of things involved in there. It's a good point. Yes?
So would you find a way to, like, in a classroom, like, the kids are embarrassed or scared to say, I have a problem I don't understand. Would you make it easier for them to be able to say something like that in the classroom?
That's a good question.
More comfortable?
I think it might. What do you think? I mean, if everybody understands that we all recognize we don't learn the same way, and I'm having trouble with this, it's okay to say that. Is that your point? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's okay to say that. It's all right. In fact, if you get it this semester, fine. If not, we'll let you move on and we'll make sure you can get it some other ways until you're okay. I think it might. That's a good point. I hadn't heard anybody say that. Yes?
Off of that, I think it is easier to, like, when it's made known that in the classroom, like what in Mr. Ripley's classroom, if there's something that you don't exactly get, if you don't raise your hand, you're welcome to go up and talk to him. But most times he's made it comfortable enough to where you can go and talk, or you can just raise your hand and be like, wait, hold on. What's this about?
Oh, Mr. Ripley is a really good teacher. Huh?
Yeah, he teaches a lot to what you're talking about. Like, his classroom setting is just like that, and it's...
That's wonderful. Congratulations, Mr. Ripley.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Well, we need more of him. Yeah. But you know, here's the point. Not everybody, even in the teaching profession, is a superstar. Not every lawyer is a superstar. Not every doctor is the best. We're human beings. We have different levels of skills, and that's okay. You were going to say something?
I think this is a great idea, and I've done excellent in Mr. Ripley's class, so I think his methods and the plans would work great. But for those kids who are super embarrassed or super shy, and no matter if they're ever going to get it or not, will not raise their hand in class ever, or say they're doing something wrong, or even walk up to the teacher because they don't want to feel like they're failing, their grade will show that. But how are we going to work with them to go to the next level and help them master whatever they're
That's a great question. Did everybody hear his question?
Yeah.
Does somebody want to offer an answer? Or do you want to?
I think one of the teachers need to stop letting kids fail, because when a kid's failing, I know a lot of teachers, they just, if kids failing, that's their problem. When really it's a teacher who needs to be better. I mean, both people, but the teacher can't say it's all them.
Okay.
Personally, I disagree with all of that. I mean, I think that it's a student's responsibility to raise themselves to the level of whatever achievement they want to, whatever their goal is. It's the student's job to set the goals and understand completely how they can raise their personal ambitions, you know what I mean? How they can raise their set standard of living to where they want to go in life. I mean, I know personally, I've had several teachers, some great, some not so great, but what really defines whether or not I learn in the class is how I look at it.
Your attitude.
Your attitude, definitely. I think that's the only thing that's lacking in our generation, is the attitude is failing. And I think that school should probably raise the bar, not lower it.
That's good to hear.
I agree with what Julia's saying. Like, I do think that sometimes students do need to, like, have ambition, but I also think that the teacher should, like, if they do see a student failing, like, maybe they, like, do need to talk to them and be like, hey, if you don't get it, like, you can come to me, or, like, just, because sometimes I know I don't want to raise my hand in class, so, like, I know I can go to Mr. Ripley, or I can go to my other teachers and talk to them, but sometimes a student's just too afraid to.
Yes, sir?
I agree on the fact, Julia, that students need to put more effort forward. But I, as a student, I've always struggled in school. I've never been able to comprehend everything. I have an IEP. I have a learning disability, which makes it where I can't keep up. If I look at a textbook, I will read that page 30 times and not understand a word out of it. So there is that point of I can try my absolute hardest and not catch on and not understand the full formula without visualizing it, just Ripley. But there is that extra step I need every once in a while. Somebody just sees how it goes.
So we do have different ability levels. What we want to guard for is people that are not trying, have a wrong attitude. I mean, that's something we'd all have to figure out. How do you recognize that and not have that allowed to be an excuse? I'll just give me more time so I can goof around. But then there are people that simply need. Good point. Yes.
I agree a lot too. Like that was really good. But like, there's also, I know some people who have hard times like pushing themselves because there's a lot more than just school in our lives. Yeah, like the outside world, a lot of times it really hinders on a person's ability to push themselves forward in school because they may have other distractions like family problems or something that may be going on. And I think that the teachers should do a little better job of recognizing when a student's failing instead of like a 1 or 2, like, hey, you've got a low grade, come on, let's get it up. Like, hey, what can we do to help you get better at this?
Well, you brought the teacher up on several occasions. How do you think the teachers feel with several classrooms of 25 students with different ability levels and wanting everybody to be successful but feeling somewhat frustrated? How do you think they feel about this whole thing? Some teachers. Yes.
I'm not a teacher, I don't know, but I hear that you guys have set plans for a teacher. They have to teach this every week and have to do this every week, but if students can't keep up with that, they still have a certain amount they have to finish by the end of the year. Yeah. And if teachers were trying to help every student pass, which, I mean, I don't think they'd become a teacher at all in their life if they had some desire to help students. Right. But if you put their back in the corner and have no other way but to teach it all and try to push them through it, then kids are going to fall behind.
Yeah, we had a couple of teachers in our last group. Mr. Ripley, you're pleased to join us. We like your point of view. You're absolutely right. A couple of them expressed that level of frustration. I've got all this I have to do within this period of time, and I know some of these kids aren't getting it, which is another indication some need more time. And we have to make that, what I'm thinking, we have to make that okay. I mean, that was your point, wasn't it? That it's okay to say, I don't get it. If we create a system that makes it okay, then I think people will be more willing to either raise their hand, ask for help, and find that we have avenues for them to get it. Right now, I don't think, several of you said, I don't think I want to raise my hand. I didn't when I didn't know it. In high school, I think it was advanced algebra, and I was an athlete, and I had a job. I had no time, and I was frustrated. I mean, it was hard. I had no time to study at night. I either picked it up in school on that particular limited amount of time. I always did homework, but not enough time. Because I had to work, and I also was an athlete, and that's a lot. That's probably too much. But that was what had to happen in my household. I had to make some money. Any other? Yes.
Don't you think that if you create a program or a system that sets such, a wide difference between being okay to take all the extra time and spend time on the kids with learning disabilities? I know personally I'm dyslexic, don't tell Mr. Ripley. And I do work outside of school, so I understand where you guys are coming from. But I think that if you set such a wide standard of learning for the kids, there'll be a lot of polarizing in the learning.
I hadn't thought about this. What's everybody else think about that? Because when you say wide standard, what did you mean? Because we're saying the standard is 80%. Standard's a standard, both for academic progress and employability skills. So we're not going to water down the curriculum. So what standard are we talking about?
When you allow for a lot more
time.
When you allow for more time, I mean, personally, I know smart kids tend to be the best at slacking off. I became very, very proficient at procrastination within my senior year. And I know that if you allow for that kind of time as a wide rule, as an overscope to an entire school of students who grow and progress at their own time, even the smart kids are going to fall behind a little bit.
Good point. That could happen. What's everybody think? Anybody have any thoughts about that?
That's when you start realizing and start weeding out and finding out who has the determination, which will count for your employability skills of what kind of student you are. If you have the choice to, if I can master this and be done, have my senior classes done by sophomore, junior year, then that should reflect on your studentship grade on your transcripts, saying that you have the motivation, you have the ability to learn everything you need to catch on.
So employability skills, you're saying when we define those, then we can watch where people are simply not motivating themselves.
Exactly. No, procrastination can only take so long.
You got a question, point, sir?
I was just going to say that I think part of the reason that smart kids tend to be slackers, as you're saying, is because they know that they can do that and still be proficient in that course. But with what he's saying, it'll push them where if they are proficient, then they don't have to stay there. They can move on. That could, I mean, it's really all speculation, but it could push them to not be slackers.
But to kind of cut off the incentive to, like, if you will, master the other 20% that's above the 80.
Oh yeah, not only did that because we're saying that is the minimum standard. We certainly will hope that people strive for 100%.
But if your work goes so fast to push the students out of the building, why will, like, what's to make them stay and work on that 20%?
Well, I'm not tripping. Yeah, that's the part you'd help us figure out. We're not trying to push them out of the building. You know, to go early? No. But we have, how many have watched seniors kind of fritter away their senior year because they really know it all, they already have it all, and they're just kind of here, and you get senioritis, and I got a senior grandson who's a senior in high school, and the last 3 or 4 months have just been plain tedious. He could have been gone the semester and he'd been better off.
Yeah.
Yes.
See, I think that with the students who excel and are able to graduate early, with them graduating early, that leaves more time instead of focusing on those students because they've already left. So you have, instead of putting your attention on the ones who have already left and excelled, then you can focus a little bit more on the students who are struggling and the students who do need help. Because my little sister, she's over in the middle school and she is genius. Like, she'll be taking geometry next year, and she's only in she'll be in 8th grade taking geometry. Yeah.
Smart.
Yeah, and I think that it would help benefit her because part of my problem was because I had a lot more potential and I wasn't able to use it and utilize everything that I had, so I started getting bored and started getting into trouble and acting out. But then with her, she had the opportunity to excel and use her full potential because she's had a little bit more resources. She's stayed out of trouble. She's still got all of that potential left. And I think if we open that up to more students and the school district, then that'll help incredibly, like, in tons of different aspects.
Mr. Ripley, what are your thoughts?
I've just had a wonderful year. The deck's a little stacked here. These are a lot of my students. But you know, they are commenting on a system that I've worked under for my whole career of teaching, and that is you're done when you've learned it. And I put a lot of things in place that it's pretty clear if you haven't learned it yet, there's only one person to blame, and that's probably not me. We put things in place that you may take as many times as you want. And what did we say? Now, you know, it's Castle Day here. You see a lot of, you know, wonderful castles here, and this back row, all the way down, is my geometry classes. And that class, we don't call it informal geometry in here. We call it informative geometry. And we've been pretty clear all year that this ain't no sissy math, haven't we? Yeah. And it's not. And these students in here are very proud of what they've done. and so am I. And I'd stack their work against anybody's. And it's really neat to have you come in and share some of this. It's not just me and it's not just Dr. Burnley. These are things that are happening nationwide. And Dr. Burnley is addressing many things that are good, positive change that you're going to be seeing not here at Wasilla High and not just in the Mat-Su, but all over our nation. So it's a very exciting time, and this is a wonderful conversation. So that's what I think.
Do you have a point of view?
I always believe that kids need to get, that our school ought to address kids by giving them what they need, that you don't have to fit into our system, we ought to fit the system around what you need. So that means that if you need more advanced classes, we should make our system fit what you need. And if you need more time, then we should find more time to meet your needs. It's the system that needs to be flexible, not you. A lot of times I see kids squeezed into having to this progress at a certain rate. So I like the idea of giving kids more time if they need more time, and I like the idea of accelerating and more opportunities. I have concerns that some of what Julia said, that I've thought of myself, that if there's no pressure to get things done, that sometimes when kids don't understand the time concept very well, your graduation's going to come and you're going to look back and you're going to feel really sad that you didn't graduate on time because you opted to take more time to finish things. In the long run, it'll probably pay off, but in the short run, there might be some big disappointments as the culture shifts. So we're going to have to work on that. We're going to have to think about celebrating success wherever it comes along instead of just these one big culminating event. And this whole school is focused on graduation right now, and that's coming up on Thursday. So I think that it'll be a journey. I think that its seeds are in the right place, and that's to address student needs, which is what we should be thinking about. So that's kind of what I'm thinking listening to you talk. I like your questions.
I've asked you a lot of questions. Would you like to ask me some? Yes, sir. How are you?
I'm doing very well. I want
everybody knows he's becoming a principal in the elementary school.
You guys know me, one thing that I'm concerned about, that maybe will echo some of what these students are talking about. I love the idea, and my own children they'll be in 3rd and 5th grade, and they've had already some of the changes that have taken place in this district they've benefited from with their education being more customized, because that's kind of how I see what you're talking about and what you just talked about. We want to make it more customized for you guys. That's how it should be. You know, it's a service industry. And anyhow, they're seeing the benefits, but I'm concerned. I don't want to let them, if they get done early, I hope they do, I'm not going to let them go off to school when they're still, is there a plan in place for that where they're 16 years old and they get done early? I don't want them going to college yet.
Well, one of the things that's a good point. And by the way, it happens so fast when you become a dad or a mom, your kids just, now for you it's like, my God, when's the day going to be over? For us, time moves like very fast. So, Mat-Su College, we're trying to have a relationship there, and so rather than having to leave the community, you can, work on a year or two there, or classes here and there. Again, customizing the situation, so you don't have to leave town just yet. And of course, sometimes you may look and somebody may simply be, if your employability skills, one part of that ought to be maturity. And sometimes people don't mature at the same rate either. And as a result, you may not be ready to go on the college campus. Well, we ought to be able to figure that out as part of the customizing. Yes?
Well, and that's, having dealt with discipline, you guys know me. I deal a lot with discipline. Usually that's what it is. I mean, it's a maturity thing. There's many students in here that may have seen me a few years ago for making bad choices that I don't see anymore for making those same choices. It's maturity things. So I'm really excited about this. I think this is going to make our school better and our community better.
How long do you think it would take to try to get something like this in place? Anybody have any ideas?
Well, a concern of mine is, everything we know, like I have an older sister who's already graduated, and if you're not graduating in 4 years, if not early, you're a fail. I don't think that's going to disappear all of a sudden. I still think that's still going to be in people's brains that you should be out of here in 4 years, if not sooner. And then even if past that we do, there's still going to be those overachievers who get done a year or two early. Those students who can't keep up right away or are maybe going to have to take a couple of years, they're still going to be feeling that pressure from their peers to be getting done as soon as possible. So they'll try to push themselves through class or try to skimp on work and try to just race through as fast as they can by not actually learning the material just to get out. I'm not.
I think if we,
Pardon me?
I think if we change that mindset will also change in future generations, because that's our mindset and that's the way we think, because that's the way
we are creatures of habit.
Because that's the way it's been, right? Yes, sir.
So I believe that students that are struggling in the classes, that we should try to provide tutoring school or something for the students that are actually trying to get the information, where the teachers can see that they're actually trying.
That could be a part of it.
That's a problem too, though, with tutoring. I mean, I personally am a father, but I also have a job. I have 2 jobs. And I also, I mean, I have a lot on my plate. I don't have time for extra tutoring after school. Now, education is number one important, but there's other priorities in life. I honestly probably would not be showing up to tutoring after school, even if I needed it.
Good point, yes.
I think a problem, not necessarily on the failing, but on the achieving, is when kids go so high, they've done everything and they have all this empty time in class. And I think in the class, not necessarily further classes, but inside the same class, there needs to be more information, more challenge that they can get that will not just be extra, but will affect their grade, but won't affect the people in the class who aren't going above and beyond.
Well, by the way, we're talking about this. I'm not saying this is going to happen, because for this to happen, a whole lot of people have to get behind it. I have to find a little bit of money, because it's going to take extra professional development, lots of communication with parents and the community, lots of communication with all the students, and a lot of hard work on the part of all of us. So unless I can find some resources, we'll keep doing what we're doing to improve things, but we won't make that leap. I just think that's the leap we have to make. And in your lifetime, I think we not only have to make that leap, or something like it, to get the confidence of the public that, by God, we're getting ROI. Everybody know what that is? A return on investment. We're giving X amount of money, and look at how the students are coming out of school. And then we say, well, and by the way, we close the gap with Europe and Asia and some of the other countries that are out achieving us. We may need more time, because they're going to school more time. They might even be willing to say, okay, I'll pay for more time for students. Now, you may not like to hear that, but the world you're heading into, that's what your competition is doing. They're going to school 220 days a year, 210 days a year. They're going to school longer. And their bottom line is to outstrip America, to beat us. It's no different than how many here are athletes? Okay, how many are chess players or scholars? You have to work the noodle to keep it in shape. Or you have to get in train. You said you were a sprinter. Well, you have to train, right? And if you don't, the competition is training. And if you don't train, even if you're a little better, they'll beat you. And so one of those, I grew up with competition. I like it. Not everybody likes it. But that's kind of what we're faced with, whether we like it or not. Yes, I have heard from you.
That brings up your idea of 80%. Is it going to be that once they hit 80%, they're going to go on to something else, or are they going to push for that last 20%?
Oh, I hope absolutely they push for the last 20%. Yeah, in other words, I would hope people want to continue to strive for A's, be the best they can be, to compete for scholarships, to have people choose them to go to whatever school they want, or want to employ them in a career field. Yeah, that's just like a minimum standard. And I don't know, is that too high a minimum standard to get at least 80%?
Like Julia said, it needs to be high.
If anything, you think. So that means everybody ought to be able to do at least 80%. Everybody.
If you go to a job and you do 80%, you're fired.
Good point. Yes.
What'll motivate the teachers to get that extra 20%?
Say it, I didn't hear you.
What'll motivate the teachers to teach that extra 20%?
Yeah. So I guess maybe you were asking me a question?
Yeah, what'll...
Oh, what will?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I would hope that if we create the system we're talking about, I think the teachers would. I've talked to a lot of them. I've talked to the union leadership. They love it. It's what they want to see happen. And that would give them more time for the students who they know are struggling, and they know who they are, and gives them more time. So I certainly hope it would make teachers want to go all out and feel that there's not, I have to do this and this within a short period of time. By God, at least I went through it. Not worried about some that the kids learned it. The bottom line is teaching and then learning. So, but those would be things that we talk about. If we really get to the point where I get some resources and the board says, go ahead, Dr. Burnley. I still haven't heard anybody tell me how long you think it will take. First your question, then you have a question too. Both of you.
I was just wondering, like, Hope said about getting teachers motivated. In our English class, we've been talking a lot about how tenure seems to make teachers, once they get it, that they seem to slack off because they have the job guaranteed. So just an idea to help teachers stay motivated is have them continually be assessed and have them set their standard as well at maybe 90%. Because to get students at 80%.
Good afternoon, Wasilla High School here. Announcements.
Yeah. Well, they should have a report card like mine where they're evaluated publicly once a year. That'll scare you.
Your books are here and they are being sold in multiple sizes outside your 136.
Yeah, I know he was saying for the teachers.
Teachers have their own time. $70. Oceanography meet today from 2 to 4:05.
My question was like, like they were saying, some of the smart kids get bored in their classes because like they don't give enough potential. Would it be possible, like with this program, like for kids to be able to move forward when they were done, or when they were
classes?
Would they be able to like finish a course early?
Then maybe what else could we do? That's why a good relationship with Early College Alliance allows them maybe take a class up there. Are we about to run out of time, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay, time for one more question.
If you have any other questions, please feel free to get them to me, and I'll get them to Dr. Burnley. I had a question.
Yes, sir.
What did you do in track?
I was a sprinter. I was ran 100 to 200 to 400, and ran at Michigan. And
Dr. Burnley.
Yes.
Yeah, how would you solve that? In one classroom, you only have one teacher, but there's some that need more time to learn one chapter while others are ready to go in the next chapter within the same classroom.
That's a problem. Something we'd have to try to figure out within this, because you're right. Sometimes you not enough time to go around for a lot of teachers, particularly if you have a wide range of skills in classroom. Well, listen, I want to thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Anybody here, if we get this going, would be willing to serve as a student on the committee? Okay. Kari was in a meeting with us last Friday. We're working with a community group of board members in AT&T Center, Menard. We're trying to figure out how to create transportation and opportunities for students who are not competitive athletes and want